Hey guys, this is Nidhi, your host for today. I hope you guys are doing great and staying safe. Welcome to this amazing session, this amazing workshop with Surbhi, where she's going to demonstrate us the all about copper plate, and she's also going to take this session, tell you more about copper plate script, its history, its origins, and a lot about it. Today's event is brought to you by Design Hill, was leading creative marketplace, and today's this specific event is brought to you by Print Shop by Design Hill, which is the creative print on demand marketplace where you can discover and buy 50 plus unique products, gifts, and artwork created by artists around the world. So, moving ahead, let me introduce our speaker for today. We have with us Surbhi Arora. Surbhi is based out of Chandigarh, India. In her growing years, she was always inclined towards art and art direction. Even during graduation, she enjoyed calligraphy, then mathematics. It has been an amazing journey ever since as she took this leap of faith and devoted all her time, energy, and heart into calligraphy. She has taught over 3,000 students as of now, and she finds it extremely fulfilling to see them create beautiful letters. It's been an adventurous journey for her, and she's super excited for what the world of letters has in store for her next. Thank you so much for joining us today, Surbhi. How do you feel to be here? You will have to unmute yourself.
Unmute. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
really very excited. I already see a lot of my students in the chat texting, saying hi, hello already. So it's like a very familiar place for me right now. So shall we start?
Yes, we will start, but before that, we have a couple of announcements to make. Before we start the session, guys, here's a big announcement. We are giving away certificates to the attendees who will stick to the end of the session. You just can't miss this chance, so please stay tuned till the end. Also, you can also take a screenshot of this event, put it on your Instagram story, tag Design Hill, DH, tag Typography Designers Club, and Letterati, which is Surbhi's Instagram handle. All these handles will be in the chat box by my colleague Shambhavi, so you can copy, paste, and start putting it on your Instagram story. One lucky winner will have a chance to win a print shop gift card worth $50. Having said that, let's quickly look at what print shop by Design Hill is all about. All right, guys, we are back and let's start the workshop. But before that, let me also tell you that Survi is also here to answer all your queries that you have related to copper plate scripts. Since it is a new concept, I'm sure you will have a lot of questions. So please put them in the questions tab. Also, do participate in our polls, which my colleague Shambhavi will be putting in time and again in the polls tab. So that one eye there as well. Surbi, over to you. You can shift your camera and take your time, shift your camera and start presenting and however you want to do it. Yeah,
So first I'll only be
you
talking
will have
about
to.
it. So
Yeah,
let's just put on the face cam.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'll just
Yeah.
leave it like that. So first of all, I would like with like the very name of the script itself, copper plate calligraphy. So the name is like pretty confusing for most of us here. So I've been teaching copper plate for quite a while, and people generally think that there's something related to copper. I mean, using metal nibs, so probably it's copper nibs, so that's why it's called copper plate. It's very confusing for people. So first of all, I'm going to be clearing this doubt. Why is it called copper plate? I mean, out of all the words that are out there, why was this particular name chosen? So for that, I have to tell you a little bit, just a little bit. I won't bore you. It will just take like 2-3 minutes. So just bear with me. So when we started writing, like in 7th century BC, we started with Roman capitals, and back then, at that time, we mainly had stones, chisel stones that were used to cause engravings in other stones, and hence we were able to write. So for that reason, most of the very ancient scripts they use when we are doing it nowadays, we use a chisel tip. By a chisel tip or a chisel nib, I mean something like that. This is the nib that's used for Roman capital and very ancient kind script, even italic script. For copper plate, we'll be using this nib, which is called a pointed nib. So basically, we had lots and lots of scripts before copper plate, and we had Roman capitals, Gothic family, Black letter, Carolina, and then we came to 15th century, and in 15th century, the Italic script was the most popular script of that time. And then in 1574, what they did was they circulated a manual. And in that manual, the method that they used to print was they took a plate of copper and then they caused engravings for all the letters. So now we have a plate of copper which has letter engravings for all the text that was there. And then you cover the plate of copper, they covered the plate of copper with a thin layer of ink. Then they removed the excess ink, and as a result, what they were left behind was a plate of copper which had ink trapped only inside the letters. So if you take a blank sheet of paper or vellum or whatever they used to circulate manuals at that time, they took a blank sheet, they put it on that plate of copper, and then they had text on that blank paper or blank vellum or whatever. So that's why the name copper plate is there. So it was not originally the script copper plate that was printed in 1574. It was italic script, and what they did was they did italic with a sharp tool. So italic with a sharp tool, and then from then that moment onwards the development of copper plate started, and by 17th and 18th century we had copper plate in full form along with very similar script like engrosser script, round hand script, etc., etc. The very primitive tool that people used to do copper plate was a quill. And all thanks to Industrial Revolution, we had nibs later on. So metal nibs is like relatively a new thing. The most original tool would be a quill. So now it's clear key. Why is it called the copper plate script? It's not because the nib is made of copper, nothing. I mean, it's the most heard myth, most frequently heard myth, to be honest. So that was about the history of the script. Coming to the tools. The tools that we currently use nowadays is mainly an oblique holder, which looks like this. You can also use a straight holder. If you have holders and nibs, it's perfectly fine. You can use them to work along with me during the session. If not, then you can just simply, work along with me using a simple pencil. So let's get started. I'll first talk a little bit about the tools, and then we'll do some warm-up drills, and then I'm planning to do some basic strokes, and probably we'll take your questions after the basic strokes. So let me just quickly switch to the backup screen. So just a moment. Yeah. So we have our oblique holder right here. So that is what I mainly use, and a lot of people use for copper plate. But it is definitely not that everybody is supposed to use an oblique holder. People can use a straight holder also. And I'll also tell you that the oblique holder in itself is pretty intimidating, right? I mean, it doesn't look like the simplest pen that you've seen. So basically, the intimidating looks of the oblique holder actually helps us. So like you can see, I have a paper with my guidelines printed all over it. My guidelines are supposed to be at the angle of 55 degrees. So the thing that oblique holder does, or the thing that oblique holder helps us with is, if I'm placing my oblique holder perpendicular to my baseline, like you can see, my oblique holder is placed perpendicular to the baseline. So what the oblique holder does is it aligns the nib in the 55-degree direction itself. So as a result, now when I'm pulling my nib down, when I'm pulling my strokes down, it's a little easier for me to go along the 55-degree slant line. So that's why we use this holder. And then we have just a flex nib. The nib that I am using here in particular is my favorite one. This is a Leonard Principal extra flexible nib. You can use other nibs as well. A very popular and an amazing nib would be Nikoji nib. So that doesn't matter. Otherwise, a pencil, you can just, create the skeletons of the letters along with me. Coming to some warm-ups, and why do we even need warm-ups, and how do we sit while doing warm-ups and doing just the calligraphy? I mean, what is the most recommended thing basically? It's not that and yes, before I move ahead with this is mainly for righties. For lefties, it is slightly different. And it is like the most recommended thing for you to do. It's not that it would be like a blunder or anything if you're not following this. So now I'm giving you a bird's eye view of your table. So suppose that this is your table and that's you. And generally, I prefer to keep my paper a little tilted to me. Basically, the corners of the paper are across my body, and then these will be my arms. And then this is very important. The entire portion from your wrist to your elbow, just like it is for this person, that will be this person's wrist and that will be this person's elbow. The entire portion from your wrist to your elbow should be on the table. It will be extremely uncomfortable and inconvenient for you if only your palm is on the table and your elbow is hanging out of the table. So this is about the posture, position, and placement of yourself and your paper. This is just the most convenient way, and I use the same approach for both the things for my warm up as well as my calligraphy. And before I start with warm up, you obviously need to know, why do you even need to do warm up? Like, we've been writing for years and years, and we've never thought that we should be warming up before writing. So what's the point of it? So for that, I'll just quickly show you my practice notebook. So this is some of my practice. So basically, a very popular thing in copperplate is flourishing. So like you can see, I've done strokes that basically a flourish stroke is a stroke like this. Like, I had this Y, and instead of just doing like this, I took an extension and I swayed around and planted two horizontal ovals. So planting, so basically you can understand flourishes as enhancements to your letter structures. So obviously, when I'm doing my flourishing, I need to move my entire arm along. I'm not using my fingers here. The thing is, if you are using only your fingers are very tiny. So with your fingers, you'll always have a very tiny range of motion. If you're only using your fingers, you cannot make any flourish or any stroke beyond this length. But if you're using your hand, your entire hand, my fingers are at rest here. I can make larger strokes. So that's the point of doing drills. First is for you to be able to do larger strokes, for you to be able to do whole arm movement. And the second is our fingers are very tiny. They barely even have muscles. So definitely it does not make sense to, make our fingers do the entire thing. So that's why if we are using the entire arm, it definitely does distribute our work evenly. I mean, I'm just using my fingers to hold my pencil, and for all the movements, I'm using my entire hand. So let's start with a very simple drill, the oval drill. And before doing the oval drill, I would also want to define the oval. What precisely do I mean when I say oval? Because oval is a pretty, it's not a very precise term. Like, this is an oval, this is an oval, and this is also an oval. So which out of these three am I talking about here when I'm saying my oval? I particularly mean this. So what's so special about this one? So if you draw a 55-degree line, which will be almost somewhere here, and you just plant two circles, that's going to be a circle 1, that's going to be a circle 2. The oval that we will be using in copperplate script will be precisely the oval that covers both of these circles in a manner like this. This is your copperplate oval. So whenever I say oval in copperplate, I mean this particular one. A slightly slimmer oval similar to this is used in a very popular pointed pen script, which goes by the name Spencerian. So let's start with the first drill for today. We'll be doing, I think, 3-4 drills. Uske baad we'll start with the basic strokes. So you don't need any fancy thing for your drills. You just need your pencil. So what I'll be doing is I won't be using my fingers at all. I'll be only using my entire arm, and I'll be intertwining ovals inside each other. So that will be, my fingers are not moving. My entire hand is pushing my pencil to cause the movement. And while I'm doing this, like you can notice, my entire palm is on the finger. My hand is not hanging in the air. Some people feel that, I mean, so there are misconceptions about everything. So your hand needs to be entirely on the paper. And that's your oval drills. एक second, now. Let's do another line, just in case you want to have a closer look. So while you're doing this first drill, what is it exactly that I'm doing? I'm starting my oval here. I go on till 1 o'clock. And then instead of completing my oval over here, I take a U-turn and start another oval. And then I again do the same thing. I go on till 1 o'clock. Instead of completing my oval, I take a U-turn and I put in another oval. So that's the basic process. And what you have to keep in mind while you're doing it, that you are not supposed to use your fingers at all. If you're doing the oval drills like this, you might as well not do the drill at all, because if the purpose of the drill is to get your arm warmed up, it doesn't make sense if your arm isn't warmed up and you're only using, your fingers, you're only tiring your fingers. So this, anybody who's doing this is please just correct yourself. It's 100% wrong. You're supposed to do this. My fingers are all locked, they are at rest. So that is something that you have to be very, very certain of. The second thing that I can do, which is like an extension to the first drill only, we call that rapid ovals. So we'll be doing the first thing just in a very, very fast and a tight manner. Like I made my ovals, which are pretty loose here. Like, and when you're doing the first drill, keep in mind that the edges of your ovals are all parallel to each other. And these windows that you are creating are as equal to each other as you possibly can. See, definitely, if it's your first day with the drills today, you won't be able to have, these neat ovals. It'll be pretty uneven. But you have to keep on doing it daily, and you have to just, stick to it for you to grow and get better with your ovals. For the second one, you don't really have to focus on making your ovals very pretty. You just have to make them very fast and very tight. The method remains the same. I'm still not using my fingers. I'm only moving my entire hand. Like you can see, I'm not doing this. I'm doing this, which are two totally different things. So that's another thing that you can do. Now, doing this in different shapes also helps us, because it's not that we want our whole arm movement in this direction. We obviously want our arm to be, warmed up, and we want to be able to draw strokes in all the directions. So it definitely makes sense to practice these oval drills in different shapes. Like this one in particular is very, very helpful for Spencerian. Like this one, you make something like this, and again, no fingers at all. And just a warning, it looks really easy on the screen, but it's not that easy, okay? So it's all right if you're taking time. I mean, see, it's an amazing thing. It's a beautiful art form. All good things take time. Give it time, it'll happen slowly and gradually. So that was about some of our drills with the pencil. Let's do some drills with the nib. Uske baad, we'll start with our basic strokes. So just a moment. I need to see if my net is working properly or not. And yes. Before I start with the basic strokes, I also want to tell a quick thing about how do you put your nib inside your oblique holder. So basically, the pointed portion of your pointed nib, this portion should be along the axis of your oval, should be along the axis of your oblique holder. Obviously, there'll be a line through the center of your holder, and the nib should be 100% along it. Basically, what I'm saying is, if there's a straight line, if this is a straight line and the straight line goes through the axis of my oval, it should be, just a moment, let me readjust the paper so that you can see more properly. I think it'll be difficult to show with this angle, but yeah, yeah, I'm able to convey. Anyways, so if this line is going through the axis of my holder, this line should also touch my nib. Basically, your your nib shouldn't be too much out of your holder. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए आपका nib. That's definitely wrong. It's like too much in the right side, or it shouldn't also be too piche. It should exactly be along the center of your oblique holder. Just a moment. Let me readjust and fix it because I don't want to be using it when mine is placed badly. Yeah. So let's get started with some oval drills with the nib, and we'll follow that up with our basic strokes. Again, so what I'm doing now is I'm just applying more pressure as I'm coming down, and I'm releasing the pressure slowly, slowly. So the mechanism of the nib is made of two tines in the starting. Like if I gently press my nib, you can also see that there are these two things separate. These two things are called tines. So the mechanism of the nib is if the two tines are moving together, they'll give you a thin stroke. If you apply pressure, the two tines will separate, and as a result, you get a thick stroke. So that's exactly what I'm doing here. When I'm not applying pressure, I'm getting a thin stroke. When I'm applying pressure, I'm getting a thick stroke. So that's another thing. If you're doing cover plate already, this is something that's going to really help you. Just ovals intertwined in each other and using my fingers only to press the nib so that I get a thick stroke. Apart from that, I'm only and only using my entire hand. If you have any questions about preparing the nib, which nib do you start with, etc., etc., you can leave it in the question section. They'll all be discussed by the end. So that's another thing you can do to warm up. But starting May, it's obviously pretty difficult to simply start with these warm-ups. So I recommend you start with pencil warm-ups, and when you're more comfortable, you graduate to these nib warm-ups. And you can also do these ovals without any weight or all thin, like this. And there you go. So these are my weightless ovals or extremely thin ovals. By weightless, I mean basically the thick portion, this heavy portion or shade, this is called the weight. So obviously if there's no shade, it's weightless. So you can also practice the weightless ovals for your drills. And again, it's all right if they're not coming out 100% perfect starting with. It's going to take time. So you can do this. Apart from that, one more thing that you can do is you can you can do them alternatively. Like you can do a heavy oval and then a weightless oval, and just make a chain like that. So that will be, let's start from here. This one is heavy, light, heavy, light. Oops. So sorry. It's a little difficult to do things while you're talking as well as doing. So this is wrong. But you get it, right? You can do this, you can do this, then you can combine these two and do another thing, etc. etc. So let's get started with the basic strokes. And before we get started with basic strokes, we obviously need to know that what are our basic strokes. Like, I mean, I'm just taking that there must be some beginners out here who don't know the definition, etc. So I'm just starting everything from the very scratch. So basically in calligraphy or in copperplate script, when I write my A, I don't really write my A like this. Basically, I don't write my A in one go. Instead, what I do a thin stroke, and then I put in another stroke that looks like this, and then I lift my hand and then I put in my last stroke. So basically my A right here is a combination of 3 strokes. I'll just use this pen so that I can do very, very quickly. Working with nib can be slightly slow. So basically my A right here is a combination of this, this, and this. And each of these three smaller things here is called a basic stroke. So you can understand basic strokes as fundamental units of your letters, or building blocks for your letters. So in copper plate, we have a total of 8 basic strokes. And if we make different permutations and combinations of these 8 basic strokes, we're going to get the entire alphabet. So let's start with the basic strokes. So I'm just going to put headings here. The first one is super simple. Oops, basic strokes. And then the first one I'll take as the entrance stroke. Yeah. So entrance stroke is super simple. It's just a very thin, less pressure or zero pressure. I mean, obviously not zero pressure, not really possible, but minimum pressure line. So your thin upstroke is supposed to be, एक second, let me clean the nib, because that's the thing with nibs. Even if you're not using it for a minute or two, and it also depends on where you're living, the ink dries up and gets stuck. So make sure that when you are sitting, you sit with a tissue paper, a jar of water to clean it, etc., etc. So yeah, just a moment. Yeah, now it's working. So your entrance stroke goes like just a weightless thin line. And the things that I would want to tell you about your entrance stroke, in the starting, it is definitely possible that your entrance strokes or your thin strokes are a little bit shaky. It's all right. You're supposed to be doing the warm-up drills daily. That's definitely going to help you stabilize your hand. And secondly, your thin upstrokes are going to feel a little scratchy. So there are two things about the scratchiness. First is you have to go very gently and very light with your nib for your thin upstroke. If you're going too heavy with your thin upstrokes, you're going to feel like really scratchy. Secondly, a slight scratchiness is definitely like something that's unavoidable because we're using a nib here. The way my nib works is totally different from the way my gel pen or my ball pen works, which we are used to. So it's all right for your nib to feel slightly scratchy. The next in line is thick downstroke, or a heavy stroke, or a full pressure downstroke, or whatever you want to call it. So for this, what I'll do is I'll put more pressure. So in this one, what I did was I put less pressure, and basically these are the tines of my nib. My tines moved together and I got a thin stroke. For my thick downstroke, I'll put more pressure, my tines will open up, and as a result, I'll get a thick stroke. So let's start with that. And do not forget to square it off at the top as well as bottom. So what do I mean by squaring off the tops and bottoms basically? Or squaring off the edges of all your letters. So if you're making a stroke like randomly, your stroke will look like this. By this, what do I mean? If I just do the outline for this stroke is precisely something like this. It is rounded off from the top as well as bottom because my tines opened up like this. They didn't open parallel to each other. That's why I have this. But this is not something that we appreciate in copper plate. In copper plate, I want all the tops as well as bottoms of all my letters, all the edges to be sharp and have squared tops. So like you can see this T, it's very squared from the top, or you can see this H right here, it's squared from the bottom. So this is very important. So we call it squaring off the edges or squaring off the top, squaring the cuts, etc., etc. So let's talk about squaring. What I generally do is I just, do a tiny line. Oops. Yeah, I just do a tiny thin line, and then I come back while I'm opening the nib, and then I come down and I just close the nib just with a lot of focus. Let me just get rid of some of the ink because obviously if I'm able to do a skeleton stroke, you'll be able to understand the same thing better. Just a moment. Let me get rid of some of the ink. Oops, सारा ही चला गया. So basically what you have to do is you have to just gently push the left tine behind and do the stroke. And when you are done, you have to pull the left line inward to make it squared from the bottom. Now, this definitely does sound like a very difficult thing to do, and it is difficult. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, oops, what I'm trying to say is, you start with opening the left tine, pushing the left tine behind your nib, and then you do the stroke. And then when you are done, just pull it right back, and as a result, you'll have um, a squared off top as well as squared off bottom. Now, if this is something that does sound very difficult to you, because it actually is, you don't need to do the square off thing right from your day one. You can simply just retouch and make all of your letter tops as well as bottoms squared. So what I most of the times do is I make my stroke like this. I go back and then I just finish off or just polish all my tops and bottoms. So that's it. Just this and just square it off. So that's about your thick downstroke. And secondly, about the thickness of your thick downstroke, it doesn't need to be extremely thick. Like your nib is very flexible. Your nib can give you strokes like this, this, even this. But copper plate is a script of elegance, and it's a script of class. If you put in too much ink, it wouldn't look elegant. So I would suggest you stick to some thick stroke like this. Basically, it should be significantly different from your thin stroke. Even if it is slightly thinner than this, that's good enough again. This is also 100% acceptable. All right, coming to the next basic stroke that we have, the underturn. THI. Oops.
Surbhi, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Am I audible? Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I
perfectly.
yeah, I think it's a good time to take a mid roll before we move on to the third one. Let's take a quick mid roll of 1 minute. Maybe you can, catch a glass of water. Maybe you've been speaking for quite a while now,
Oh,
and
okay.
then we'll be back right after 1 minute after this
Oh,
mid
sure.
roll. So, guys, I hope you're enjoying the session. Let's quickly give a shout out to Design Hill for organizing this event.
I've always been creative and always been an artist. As a young girl, I used to paint rocks and I used to sell them for a quarter on the street. And I just fell in love with it. It just grew into a passion of mine. I've always been creative and always been an artist. As a young girl, I used to paint rocks and I used to sell them for a quarter on the street. And I just fell in love with it. It just grew into a passion of mine. I started looking on the web and I came across Design Hill, and they had a design contest to design a logo, and I entered it and I won. And I was like, oh, this is really great. I can pick and choose what type of logos or design projects I want to work on. And it allows me to be creative, keep my hands, with my tools and working. So it's kind of nice. It's really easy to use. You can scroll through the projects and there's sections that you could go by. It's really easy. There's a few clients who have come back to use the one-on-one projects. There's one client in particular, she owns a vintage shop, and I designed her logo, and she came back. She needed a design for a flyer, and she really liked the illustrations that I did for her, so she came back a couple of times with projects. I would recommend it, especially if you're a designer that's starting out and you want to learn from other designers, seasoned designers. It's a place to keep in the game and keep using your tools. It makes me feel great, and it kind of confirms that I should be doing this. And I love to see logos that I've designed out, and proud of that. And I think that the clients are so happy that their logo represents what they do and makes them look good. It's a collaboration. It's good for me, and it's definitely good for them.
All right, we're back again, and let's start. Jump back to the session. Surbhi, and let's try to have 20 more minutes for this session, and also because we also have a lot of questions, a lot of them actually in the questions tab, so we will have to answer them. Let's continue for next 15-20 minutes, and then we will move towards the questions. Yeah, Surbhi, you will have to unmute yourself. Yeah,
Sorry.
no problem. Okay, Surbhi is actually switching her camera, which is why she's not. Yeah. Hi, Surbhi, you good? Please unmute yourself. Uh, we cannot hear you, Surbhi. You will have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Am
Yeah.
I unmute now? Am
Yes,
I
we can.
unmute now?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
This
Please
was
continue. Please
probably
continue.
a
We can hear
glitch.
you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I'll try to be a little less elaborate now because I mean we just did like 2 strokes and it's already been 40 minutes. Anyways, let's continue with the underturn. I'm taking 10 mm for my underturn. Basically, this will be my baseline. This will, oh, okay. Before I introduce baseline, waistline, these terms, I should also just, before I start using them, I should introduce them. So basically when we are doing copper plate, we write inside a couple of lines and we call those lines like baseline, waistline, A sender 1, A sender 2, etc., etc. A sender 1 and A sender 2, D sender 1 and D sender 2. So if I'm writing something like, hey, yeah. So if I'm writing something like, hey, my H, like you can see, stays between my baseline and A sender 2. And if I'm writing my Y goes all the way till D2. So I'm taking a total of 5 spaces here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Uh, the distance between this baseline and this waistline is called the X height. The X height that I have chosen for this particular guideline set is 5 mm. uh, People do tend to use larger guidelines in the starting because definitely it's much more easier to see your mistakes when everything is slightly magnified. So if you're starting out, you can maybe even start with 7 mm or 8 mm, anything you feel comfortable. I've chosen 5 mm for the worksheet. And secondly, we call, when we're using my lines like this, we call this 2 is to 1 is to 2 ratio. And why do we call that? So basically, my A sender here is taking 1 and 1, 2 spaces. So I wrote down 2 for that. And then my X height is taking 1 space. And then again, my descender is taking 1 and 1, 2 spaces. And hence I call it 2 is to 1 is to 2. Other ratios that people tend to use in copper plate are 3 is to 2 is to 3. Again, a very popular ratio. And at times people just take all these three things equal, like the A sender space equal to the X height equal to the D sender space. And if you're taking all these three things equal, it's called 1 is to 1 is to 1, obviously. So your underturn is supposed to stay inside your X height or in between your baseline and waistline. So let's get started with the underturn. It's precisely, just a moment. So in the meantime, I was talking, my ink got dried up and got stuck. So I'm just quickly cleaning it. Yeah, so that works fine. So my underturn starts with a straight line, takes a curve, slowly takes a curve again and come back straight up. I'll do a slightly magnified version for the same so that I can talk about the details. So it's straight, slowly reduce the pressure, and straight again. Now the things that you have to keep in mind for your underturn um, it should be very straight. This line, you can see, this is 100%, it's like 100% over my 55-degree straight line. And same is the case with this. A lot of times, we're just it's not that I put it on, you guys for starting out and doing like that, but it's just a force of habit. We are used to writing U's like this, where, this is very round, this is very round. So a lot of us tend to struggle with undertones and tend to do undertones like this in the starting, like this. But this is not copper plate. This is very round. This is very round. You can see this is definitely not along the slant line. In my copper plate, most of my strokes, my weights, my thick and thin lines, most of them are supposed to be along the slant line. If it is rounded off like that, I'm definitely not doing my purpose. So you're supposed to make it straight. Secondly, the fundamental shape of my script, basically my oval, if you are doing an underturn, you should be able to fit in your copper plate oval inside of your underturn like that. So that's another thing that you have to keep in mind. And you can also notice that if I'm just extending this and if I'm just extending this, I have these little triangles that I have created here and here. These triangles, we call them breathing rooms. And you should try to maintain, you should try to keep these triangles intact, because, if you miss out on, if you just fill these things, fill these little triangles with ink, your letters will look less elegant. So I'm going to quickly repeat it. 100% straight, getting rid of my pressure, minimum pressure again, and again making a straight line. So that's my underturn stroke. Breathing room, oval on the inside, and 100% straight and 100% straight. Coming to the next stroke, the fourth one, which is the overturn. Overturn is pretty different and kind of very opposite from my underturn. Your overturn goes like, I'm going a little fast now. I hope that you're able to catch up with me. So your overturn goes like, you start with a thin straight line, you take a turn, reach 12 o'clock, take a turn again, and come back down and square it off at the bottom. The squaring off part is done everywhere. I did it in the underturn as well, and the process, the details are more or less the same. You can see that after I've done the rounding off, after I'm done with this curve here, my stroke here is 100% straight. I again have my breathing rooms here and here, and I can definitely plant my oval inside, my copper plate oval inside. A wrong way to do your overturn would be to do your overturn like this. Obviously, I'm not going along the slant line, so that would be wrong. That would be wrong. This is something that you have to watch out for when you're practicing. And now if you're just combining the two strokes that we've already done, the underturn and the overturn, I can get my compound curve. Compound curve is slightly difficult, especially for beginners, because for some reason I've seen a lot of us uh, make the second stroke that's in the center a little off slant. So just a moment, let me put down the heading, compound. So compound is precisely a combination of your overturn and underturn. Let me quickly do both of them again. So overturn, square of the bottom, underturn, and just combine them, and then you get your thin up, thick down, thin up. All the three strokes are supposed to be along your 55-degree slant line. I'm doing a slightly magnified version so that I can talk about the details. Thin up, round, add weight, get rid of the weight and go back up. Now the things that you have to keep in mind for your compound curve, and a very common mistake honestly associated with the compound curve, first is a lot of us tend to do the compound like this. Now that is definitely wrong. And why is it wrong? Basically, when I'm doing my compound, I should be able to recite or plant two copper plate ovals, one over here and one over here. So obviously you won't be able to plant any copper plate ovals over here. So definitely we are not following the essence of the script. So that's what makes that particular wrong. And another very commonly done wrong compound stroke that I've seen is a lot of times people do their compounds like this. Now, this is also definitely wrong because my heavy stroke or my weight is not along my 55-degree slant line. My slant line is going here. My 55-degree slant line is going here, and my stroke is in a totally off direction. So obviously, that doesn't follow the spirit of copper plate, and hence it is wrong. And probably if you are, doing your compound like this, I would probably ask you to maybe, watch out on how you are placing your hand with respect to the notebook. Because if you are pulling your nib down in this direction, you're you're not placing your hand perpendicular to your baseline, or you're not aligning your oblique holder properly. Basically, as long as your oblique holder is placed perpendicular to your baseline, the nib will be automatically aligned in such a way that if I'm pulling down my strokes will, just a moment, let me do that. This looks like a fun thing. Yeah, so if my oblique holder is put perpendicular to my baseline, and if I'm just simply pulling it down, I'll be naturally able to pull it down in the 55-degree direction. If you're doing it like this, you're probably holding and placing your hand wrong. So you'll have to watch out for that. So let's quickly do it again, and then we'll come back to the oval and other few strokes. So that's your compound. And definitely there are plenty of breathing rooms here, 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 and here. So that's about it. I'm just going to put this paper aside and start with the oval over here. The very, very popular good old oval in copper plate that's everywhere. So that's just the oval, and after oval we'll have just two more strokes. Okay, ascending and descending. So that should take like 10 more minutes almost. So how I do my copper plate oval, I mainly prefer starting my copper plate oval from 12 o'clock, slowly decrease the pressure and go back out. And you can also observe that the 55-degree line is dividing my oval into two equal parts. If you just fold this oval, it's very symmetrical. That's what I'm trying to say. And it's definitely not like a rule that you have to start from 12 o'clock, essentially. You can start from 3 o'clock also. But I don't really recommend starting from 3 o'clock because I've seen a lot of assignments when people are starting from 3 o'clock, they end up making their A's like this. And obviously, I need to have an oval in my A. So this is not a copper plate A. So that's why I don't really, recommend starting your oval from 3 o'clock. I recommend starting from 12 o'clock. And your oval is very, very symmetrical again. Like you can see, it has a little breathing room here and a little breathing room here. And if you closely observe, the size of both of these breathing rooms is equal. And same is the case with this portion as well. And the weight or the shaded portion is concentrated in the central region. Wrong ways to do this oval would be if you're planting weight too far at the bottom, or if you're planting weight too far on the top, you're definitely not doing it right. Your weight is supposed to be centrally concentrated. So yeah, that's your oval. Coming to the ascending loop. Ascending loop we mainly use in letters like H, K, and even if we combine it with an underturn in letters like L, etc. Oval is very intuitive. You all definitely know that we can use the oval in A, D, even A, D, and G, and even Q, etc., etc. So there's a lot of letters with ovals, and ovals are present in the letters in which even if you don't have like oval basic stroke in that letter, because oval is everywhere. You have oval and underturn. So if your letter has an underturn, your letter still has an implied oval, right? So your ascending loop generally stays between. So that's going to be your, oops, just a moment. The ink is dried up. So sorry, guys. Yeah. So that's your baseline, waistline, A1 and A2. Please pardon me for that. I don't really like writing this very neatly. So I really like starting my ascending loop from this, almost 12 o'clock position. And I come back piche, come back at the back, and then drag it straight. And obviously, do not forget to square it off at the bottom. And then I go back at 12 o'clock and complete it. So the things that you have to keep in mind for your ascending loop is the first third portion, or the portion between A1 and A2. That's supposed to be kept very neat. There's not a lot of weight here. You also have a little breathing room. And then this portion over here, you should be able to plant your copper plate oval, a very tiny copper plate oval in here. And then beyond this, it is very, very straight. If you're doing your ascending loops like this, you're definitely not doing it right because this is off slant. If you're doing your ascending loops like this, call your script like your modern script. I've seen so many that's also another misconception. At times people tend to think that whatever comes out of your oblique holder necessarily has to be copper plate. Definitely it's not the thing. If you're doing thin up and thick down, and if you're not following the so many rules that we have in the script, you can't call your letters or you can't call your script like copper plate. If you're doing your ascendings like this, and if you're doing your descendings like this, good enough, but please don't call it copper plate. You'll have to call it modern. Like if your H looks like this, it's 100% all right, but it's not copper plate. Your copper plate H essentially has to be this. All right, so I guess that's enough about our ascending. Let's come back to our descending. Oops, I skipped out an ancient stroke. I don't know why do I do that. All right, let's come to the descending loop. And that's going to be the last basic stroke for the day. And after this, probably we'll be taking some questions, etc., etc. So your descending loop stays between your waistline, D1 and D2. Just a moment, yeah. So I start with my heavy stroke, go straight, reduce the pressure, come back up, and you should be able to plant your copper plate over here. Do not forget to square off all the tops of your letters. So that's your descending loop. And you can notice the little breathing room that we have over here. All right, so let's do a little Q&A if you wish.
Absolutely, yes, we will. But for that, we would love to see your face.
Yeah, sure. Let me readjust the
Yeah.
camera. Just a moment. Just a moment, okay?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. So first of all, this was such an amazing session. I mean, this demonstration was so different to start with, and so detailed. I can see in the chat box, each and everyone has loved it to the core, and I hope the session never ended. But we have some time constraints. So we have like few more minutes in our hands. Let's take a few questions, and I can see there are a lot of questions in the questions tab. Let's take the most asked questions. I've been keeping an eye here, and Carmel asks, can we use other medium in doing copper plate script like commonly used brush pens?
Oh yeah, you can do the same thing with a brush pen, and a lot of people do that, me included. So basically for copper plate, what you need is a pressure sensitive thing to start with so that you can have a thick and a thin stroke. I really love doing copper plate with, few tip brush pens, let it be Pentel or Tombow Feud and Suki. And in the session also, I wrote this hey over here. which I will still call copper plate, but I didn't do it with my brush with my nib. So yeah, you can definitely do that. And at times people also do copper plate with pencils. 0.7 mm mechanical pencil. Pencils are also very basic, but they are always pressure sensitive. So you can always practice your copper plate with a 0.7 mm pencil. And also, if it is available in your area, Palmino pencils are amazing to practice copper plate.
All right. Great. Kamal, I hope that answers your question. Another question is by Dhriti Agarwal. Sumi ink is expensive. What ink you can use for workshops from and from where you buy it?
So I mainly use walnut ink and Sumi ink. So to be honest, walnut ink is not like so cheap. But I prefer walnut ink always over Sumi ink because I personally feel that the Sumi ink ruins the nib slightly faster. So walnut ink is a little better on the nib. I mean, all the nibs do, or all the inks do interact and damage nibs sooner or later. But obviously, there are certain inks that are not as amazing for your nibs. Like Sumi ink, I don't personally, I don't think that it's amazing on my nib. Even the iron gall or acidic inks, they're also too harsh on your nib. So I think I would recommend walnut ink or walnut crystals.
All right. All right. So Siddhi asks, whenever I try to write something, I don't know why, but my ink on the nib dries just after that. You have mentioned it a couple of times while you were on it. Um, uh, Siddhi is using isomers oblique holder, nib and ink.
So I've actually not tried Isomars ink like ever. So probably it's not like amazing quality. And secondly, I'm sorry, but I don't really like Isomars holder because it has a plastic flange and it's pretty uncomfortable. I would recommend to shift to a very basic manuscript oblique holder. I mean, not too fancy. You don't need this to start off with. I'm just a crazy person. I'm crazy for stationery. You don't need this resin and this gold flaky holders. A simple black basic manuscript holder works fine. The main difference between isomers and manuscript holder is isomers holder has a plastic flange and it's not very convenient to work with. Secondly, if your ink is drying quickly, even if you're not using your nib for like a minute, your ink dries up. Like that's a fact. It's just a liquid. It has to dry up. So, you just keep a tissue paper handy and some water handy. And, even if you're not using it for a minute, just wipe it off. And I'm sure that you can work with isomers ink. It can't be that bad.
All right. So there are a couple of questions. In fact, there are many questions as to how should beginners who have not been in the calligraphy field before this, and if this catches their fancy, how to get started. Because a lot of what you said, it may not be technical, but it sounds a little technical. So
Yeah.
yeah. How should a beginner go about it?
See, definitely copper plate is a pretty technical script. I mean, we are recreating something from the 17th and 18th century, and we are not supposed to bend too many rules because we are preserving history in a sort of way. When I'm writing in copper plate, when I show you this notebook, you don't say that this is a pretty letter. You say that this is vintage, this is classy. This looks
Yeah.
like something from the past. So basically, the thing with copper plate and traditional scripts is that they're not just beautiful letters. They're supposed to tell something that's supposed to give you a fragrance of the era from where they are. There are definitely a lot of sources on the internet. There are definitely a lot of books. I personally prefer taking workshops because I personally feel that even if XYZ person is teaching me, that person has learned it herself and has gone through a fair amount of struggle. So basically, the point of workshop is the instructor basically shares his or her secrets, his or her struggles, and how the person came over those struggles. And secondly, obviously, there are instructors who've taught other people as well. So obviously, like I already know what are the possible mistakes with underturns, ascending, descending. So I personally prefer attending workshops. If workshop is not something that you might want to do, you can simply just get some books. Mastering Copper Plate Calligraphy by Eleanor Winters is a really nice book available on Amazon. And about attending a workshop from an instructor, I just recommend always go with the workshop by someone whose work you are crazy about, whose work you really adore, because obviously that person is going to teach from her own letters. And when you're starting out, your letters will give a fragrance of your instructor's letters. So obviously you have to, really be crazy about your instructor's letters at the first place.
Right. Very well said. Thank you so much. And Nafisa says, how do we stop ink from bleeding on the paper?
So you use 100 GSM paper. If you use 75 GSM paper, your ink bleeds badly. Or if you use, the thing with a copper plate or pointed pen is, if you're not using ink which is very pigmented, if you're using ink which is very thin, and at times this is the case even with the fountain pen inks, those inks are very thin and they
Yeah.
tend to bleed. So upgrade your ink to a more pigmented ink. Instead of ink, you can also use a medium called gouache, Gouache. You take 1 part gouache, you add 2 parts of water to it. And I already have some prepared. Abhi time nahi hai, there's no time right now, otherwise I would just demonstrate it. And it just gives you as nice of an ink as the proper ink. You
All
can
right.
use that as well. And there are a lot of cheap gouaches as well that are available. So you can just simply research gouaches on Amazon. I'm sure you'll get plenty. If you still have more doubts, feel free to DM me at my Instagram, letterati underscore Edterati underscore. So I would love to help
Yes.
you out.
Yes. And I would request Shambhavi, my colleague, to once again write down Surbhi's Instagram handle on the chat so everyone can always reach out to her in case if they have an issue or a problem or a question. Um, Moving on to the next question. This is by Monica, and she says, my lines are never at a 55-degree angle. How can I improve that?
So, first thing is you practice lines. Like, don't start with don't start with letters. You make straight lines. And when you're making those straight lines, make sure your arm is perpendicular to baseline, because just like I already showed in the workshop, if your arm is placed perpendicular to baseline, your oblique holder has a tendency to align itself on the 55-degree slant line itself. So those two things. Practice straight lines, just 55-degree slant lines. Two, focus on how you're putting your hand with respect to your notebook.
All right. And I can see there are so many questions. I'm seeing this list getting bigger and bigger, but I will try to cover as much questions and as much concepts as possible. As far as calligraphy, copper plate script for beginners is concerned, guys, I would like you to see the replay of this session where she has already covered, where Surbhi has already covered this. Uh, Another question is by Maknoon. Um, what is the best pen to use for calligraphy? I think we have covered this, right? We have
That's
covered
actually
this.
an amazing question. There's no best or worst piece of pen or ink or stationery. Your pen, your tool is just a medium to channel your own creativity. Like I said, a pencil is also pressure sensitive. So if you don't have a oblique holder, start with a pencil, super chill. It
Right.
just focus on your basics and just focus that you're doing it in the right way. Your tool is
Mhm.
not that important.
All right. Another one is by Shreya. She says, my hands shiver while I do the drill. The strokes are going haywire. What do I do?
I read it in some book. It was like some book from the golden age of penmanship. And the book talks about how shaky hands and shivery strokes are not always a physical issue. At times, we're just so scared of making bad strokes that we tend to have shaky lines. So first, I'll suggest, don't be scared of making a bad stroke. It's just a piece of paper. It's just some ink. Nothing is at stake. You have probably hundreds of papers at your home. So first is, don't be scared of making bad stroke. Second is, just focus on doing the drills regularly. And if you're doing, maybe start with the rapid wala drills first and not the first one. Start with the second drill that we did today first. Because the
All
first
right.
drill is slightly difficult.
All right. And the next question is actually going to be a test for me. And I want you, Survi, to tell me if I answer that correctly or not because I've heard it so many times. Shreya again asks, can we use normal fountain ink? Shreya, yes. As long as the ink is perfectly pigmented, you can use the fountain ink. Any tool would do, a pencil would do, as long as you practice more, as long as you follow what copper plate script is all about, which is about the script and not the tool. How is it,
It's
Survi?
almost right. It's almost correct.
You want to
Like, I
add?
don't recommend fountain pen inks because वो pigmented नहीं होती. I mean, they are not pigmented. Like, they're not the best things, but You can try, maybe.
Yes, I mean, it's just that you should not restrict yourself for the absence of a resource. Like keep trying, keep keep finding out what works best for you, and eventually there are the best of tools and resources that are there in the world, which Surbhi, of course, showed us today. It's just that yeah,
I just need like 1 minute because currently I'm alone at home and my
yes,
the pickup person has come to pick up the copper plate calligraphy
okay,
kit. So just go to the door and
yes.
be back in like 60 seconds. In the meantime, uh, you have to answer everything. It'll just take a
Okay.
minute.
All right, guys. If there are any more questions, please feel free to put in the questions tab. And
Yes, yes, yes. I'm back. I'm back.
all right. So, Gursimran asks, this is going to be the last question for the day. Can we use gum arabic to thin inks? I've heard that it works fine.
Yeah, gum arabic is an amazing thing. I've recently started using it, and when it's such an amazing product that when I started using it, I was like, oh my God, my life has changed for better. At times, I even put a little amount of it in my walnut ink. It just makes the texture even more amazing. So you can definitely try doing that. I mean, what do you have at stake? If you think that you don't want to ruin the entire bottle, take some amount of it out in a tiny this size bottle. This size bottles are available on Amazon very easily. So you can take out small portion and then you can do experiment with it. But I'm sure it'll work.
All right. And with that, as much as we love this session, this is a time to end it actually. We have to wrap up the session. I hope everyone enjoyed, and I'm sure everyone did because the chat box says it for it. It is very, very self explanatory if you have a look at the chat box. Um, I hope you guys enjoyed the session. I would like to give, a quick shout out to Design Hill for organizing this event, and also to Surbhi Arora, who took out the time. This was a rescheduled event. She took out the time to be here and she addressed all of you. I hope Surbhi enjoyed it here too. Any last thoughts, Surbhi?
So I would say, say that if you're trying the script, try it like really nicely. Internet is an amazing place to spread information, but it's also an amazing place there where there are a lot of non-credible sources. So what I would recommend, if after the session you are researching on copperplate, just be very selective of your resources. Because obviously, if I have interacted with you once, I would want you to do the correct thing. If you want me to help you out further with your copperplate journey, I have a 9 to 10 hour long workshop, which is like copperplate is a very elaborate script. We could barely do the first 8 strokes. So obviously there are 26 lowercase letters, 26 uppercase letters, basic strokes for uppercase letters. So if you want to learn it from me, definitely I would love to help you out with that. But even if it is not me, just be very selective of the sources that you look up for information, because it's something that's not modern. It's something it's the history that we are preserving here. So
Right.
it has to be done in that particular way, otherwise it stops being copperplate. Like I said, like if your ascending is slightly rounded, it stops being copperplate, because again it is something we are preserving from the past.
Right. Thank you so much again, Surbhi, to come here today and addressing our audience with your knowledge and experience and your insights. Thank you so much, guys. This is not very tense. We have a lot more events lined up in the coming days. If you guys are interested, haven't registered yet, my colleague Shambhavi is putting the link of our event section in the chat box where you can find all our upcoming events. And do check out for your own good. They are amazing. To watch this session and other such wonderful events, subscribe to our event section on YouTube channel. You can find the link in the chat again. Also, we have recently launched some cool design hill challenges, which are more than $5,000 per month, and that's huge. Any designer, non-designer can be a part of it. Create some awesome designs using our DIY design tool called Design Hill Studio. The link would be in the chat box again. Please check more about it and definitely visit designhill.com. On that note, I would like to say bye to everyone who joined us here today. Take care, guys, and stay safe.
Bye bye, take care.